There's no sponsor that I use more while I'm awake than NordVPN.com/Fightful. Man, this is like the Swiss Army knife, the multi-tool of applications. It does a little bit of everything. You always get a great deal at NordVPN.com/Fightful. You can listen to your favorites abroad. You can shield your data from snoops and criminals, protect yourself on public Wi-Fi, and it works on all your devices and operating systems. It doesn't end there. Change your virtual location and then get pay-per-views at a much more affordable price, TV services at a much more affordable price. You got a password manager, a file encryption tool, threat protections, and on top of that, 24/7 tech support. So if for some reason you don't know exactly how it works, NordVPN.com/Fightful will help you learn how to do it. Check it out, NordVPN.com/Fightful. What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp. Welcome to Fightful. Here with a name you know. You might know him as Ricardo Rodriguez. Now you know him as Jesus Rodriguez. You can see him January 11th, Dallas, MLW Kings of Colosseum. He's been back in the MLW fold, which has been really great. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I apologize if my camera's a little weird colored. So I apologize on that aspect. It'll get replaced soon. But no, I'm excited to be here. It's been a while since we last chatted.
Yeah.
So now obviously we're here. We're in 2025, and we're kicking it off with a big bang, especially this weekend, man. MLW in Dallas, Texas. I'm super beyond excited for that.
Yeah, I know that I had spoken to you for a series of features that I did about the Royal Rumble, and you were so helpful with that, which I always appreciate. But since you've been in MLW, I know you've done some of the battle riots and stuff as well. How does that compare, as you did have Royal Rumble experience? Because I'm a total geek for matches like that. I love those. They appeal to my ADHD sensibilities, and, and I love it. I really love those matches.
The Royal Rumble, obviously, man, it's always going to be a big spectacular, right, in the world of professional wrestling. That's definitely one of those events that everything stops for that. So to have that experience and then to kind of go into the battle riots, with already that knowledge of how to avoid getting eliminated, which, I mean, obviously in the Rumble it didn't work out too well for me. But just, I mean, transferring over to Battle Riot and then being in the ring with some of the talent that I've had that pleasure of being in WWE with was a great experience. But now that I've been with MLW for the last it's going to be 2 years, I believe, in April. That I've been with them, and not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes producing. It's been a beautiful pleasure of being able to work with these younger talents, and also at the same time people that I'm familiarized with, that I used to watch when I was growing up, and then I got to be around the same time frame. So it's been such an awesome time with them, and then how much they've grown, and right now this explosion of pro wrestling as a whole has, across all companies throughout the entire world, not just in the US, just internationally, has been very beneficial for us as well.
Yeah, I know MLW has been very happy with their ticket sales and stuff over the year. They had claimed that they sold out every show, which is really, really incredible. And I mean, you've been doing good work there. One of my favorite spots in recent years, you teamed with little Guido.
That was a lot of fun. Which I mean, it makes sense in my head, at least, because I mean, Italians are the original Latinos, Latin, right? To a degree, so it makes sense to me. But that was a lot of fun, and then we got to beat up Microman, so that's always a pleasure.
Man, that guy is a force. Like, everywhere he goes, he sells crazy merch. Like, people love Microman.
Oh yeah, he's awesome.
So in addition to that, I know that you recently worked with Matthew Justice, another guy that has like really emerged in MLW. Who is it that you have your eye on in that company, and you're like, yeah, they're going to develop into something pretty special?
There are plenty. I do believe that Ryan Gosling is going to be a big name moving forward. He's amazing on the microphone. He has a look to him, and he's still relatively new to wrestling as a whole. So once he develops and he understands himself even more than what he already does, I think he's definitely going to be a main player in the years to come. You have Delmy, who, yeah, granted she's been around for a while, but like she's another one that I feel that after this weekend, because she's gonna fight Janai Kai, who I'm very familiar with in a hair versus title match. I think Delmy's gonna. I do feel, because she's grown so much in the last year that I've been working with her, and it's been a pleasure to see her growth. So I know that she's going to be definitely another one that's going to be a big standout, and I do believe that the 2025 is going to be a big year for her as well.
So we are just emerging out of Christmas. Is this a tough time for you as you witness Santa being run over?
I have my gripe with him. I still have my gripe with him, right? That's why I have trust issues. That's totally why I have trust issues. I never did anything to him. I
You
went for a
didn't.
hug, and then Santa went and clocked me with his toy sack. So I have trust issues. But yeah, anytime I see Santa, it's a PTSD flashback.
Am I misremembering? Because the way that I remembered it, like you all had done an angle where there was like maybe a turn or a split in route, and then because the Christmas show was the next week, they had to go back and do that angle.
We chatted about that a few times where I believe we were in Brooklyn, and I want to say it was like TLC, where like Alberto saves me from 3MB. So that's where like the turn was happening. And then the week, not even a week, a couple of days later, we ran over Santa. So it was just one of those. I think it was more so just for the sake of the episode and for the sake of the event, the match. And then we went back to being bay faces right after. Um, but yeah, no, we chuckle about that quite a bit.
I remember you talking about this, and I had completely forgotten about it, but that you had effectively created the Ascension, and then Dusty Rhodes was like, "Yeah, that ain't gonna work."
Yeah. Oh man. And then I don't know if you've ever chatted with Victor or Connor.
Yes.
They and then they'll tell you similar, man. It was one of those where um I was a big fan of The Devil's Advocate, the movie with Pacino, and so then that was like where the idea kind of came from.
Yeah.
Um and so I started going up to these individuals one by one and on promo during promo class with Dusty, and I was just doing that to them. And so the Ascension kind of came about, and shortly thereafter, I remember I was at TV, and then Connor had hit me up, and he said, "Hey, we have this promo coming up. What do you want to talk about?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. Just do you think of something? What the Ascension means to you, type deal." So they did, and then shortly thereafter, I got pulled into the office by Dusty, and then in Dusty fashion, go, "Hey, baby, let me talk to you for a second." And then he's like, "Yep, you're at the Ascension." And I was like, "All right." And I mean, I get, in retrospect, I get it. I get why. What I was doing on TV was contradictory to what was happening with that, so I get it. I was still upset, but at the time, I was not too happy because I didn't want them to be vampires, and that's kind of the direction that they kind of went, because that's what like that's around that time when Twilight was a thing, was a big thing. So that's what I felt like they went with at the time. But ultimately, it worked out for them. I mean, the packages they did, the entrances when it turned into NXT, you know, the killer tag team that they had, the matches that they had, the entrance, the song, all that, it paid off for them.
Some of my favorite stuff that you did was stuff that I'm not even sure they ever acknowledged it was actually you when you were doing the El Local stuff. Like, because I watched everything. So
Yeah.
when something pops up on a Saturday morning or any shows like that, I'm like, okay, who is this? And then I'm like, wait, that's Ricardo. How
It,
did that come about? Was that something you had to push for, or was that something that they came to you and said, let's do this?
there was a whole bit that went into it. It was a lot of a lot of uh, I would get into the ring before Raw and SmackDown. I would get in the ring because a lot of people didn't even know that I wrestled. So I started getting in the ring, moving around, and little by little, started getting involved with the matches. And then I would go down to FCW, and I would train with Norman and Ricky Steamboat, and I would train with the guys, and they started putting me in matches under the hood. So that's kind of how it started, and then word got back up to the main office, and they started letting me do the live events. They started letting me do the tours. If somebody was coming back from injury, they would put me with them under the mask. And it was something I was very proud of, that I was able to wear my independent wrestling gear, of Chimera in on WWE TV. So that's something I'm very proud of. And uh, I remember they when I would wrestle as Ricardo, they would specifically tell me that I did not know how to wrestle, so act like it. Um, which was, I mean, that was harder to make it seem like I didn't know anything, which I mean I don't, so it wasn't too far off. Um, but I was very grateful that I got a chance to do that, and then the transition over to the independence afterwards. And now with MLW, I get a chance to do that, and I get to wrestle again. So I got to wrestle Matt Justice in Atlanta at Center Stage, and that dude hits hard. He hits very hard.
Dude,
Um, but
he looks like he lays it in.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it was so much fun, and uh, but he didn't complain because just as he hit me, I hit him back, and he was dishing it right back. So it was great. But I get a chance to do that at MLW every now and then. I got to wrestle Microman at MLW. I got to wrestle Ichiban. So I got to wrestle in Chicago at a couple months back in a
Atlantis.
match. Oh
With
man,
Team with Atlantis, yeah.
Atlantis, that was like one of my childhood heroes, and to partner up with them, to tag with them. I remember afterwards, after the match, I told him that, hey, this is my geek out moment. When I was growing up, like you were my guy when I was a kid. So I just want to say it's a pleasure, it's an honor. And yeah, he just shook my hand and said, no, no, Miko, está bien, don't worry about it. It was fun. So that was such a pleasure, and again, we get to do that with MLW, and um, we're going back to Chicago in May on, I believe, May 10th. And that's a beautiful audience. So we put that, and we're getting to travel again. And like I said, in Dallas this weekend, which is a very heavy Latino community as well too. So that's that, having that mix as well with the CMLL connection that we've been able to build, that relationship, having Mystico, Star Junior. In this case, we have Blue Panther, the legendary Blue Panther, that's going to be in action against Atlantis and Atlantis Junior.
I spoke to both of them recently. They were wonderful.
Oh man, they're amazing. They're amazing. And Atlantis Junior, I think, is another one too. He's bilingual.
Yes.
Great shape, very athletic. So I think he's another one too that's going to stand out a lot moving forward, especially with the connection that they have with Japan and here in the United States, because those guys just came back from the Tokyo Dome
Yeah.
last weekend. Echiseto is awesome, and he gets to be at MLW. Mystico, who's been killing it. Um, the last year. So having Mystico on board with MLW2 brings a lot of attention to the brand as well. And it's very happy. I'm very happy that we get a chance to work with Mystico, especially on a personal level, because I've known him for so many years and I've wrestled him
Yeah.
countless of times, back in our, WWE days. So it's been a pleasure, man, to see so much growth all across the board, and then to have this bond that we have between MLW and CMLL, which that to me was always my main goal, is to wrestle at Arena Mexico, and maybe one day it'll happen. Who knows?
You mentioned what it meant to you to wear your independent gear mask in WWE. Then they're like, well, yeah, one's not enough. We're going to add Tyson Kidd with you as well, who is like renowned as a wrestling genius now.
Oh
Like
yeah.
there are so many people that specifically want him to produce their match. What was that like for you, having them add that? And then sometimes he would take the gimmick. I can't remember if it was you or him in NXT in the Battle Royal that did it.
So I think that's how it started originally. I think he went. No, I'm lying. It was for like Saturday Night Main Event or something. It was it was main event or something. And then there was like an Ultimate Dragon mask that they had in like the storage, and he put that on. And that's how we came up with like the los locales for a little bit. And
Love it.
yeah, and then he did it again, I think, in NXT for a little bit. But no, man, the mind that TJ has is incredible. And just in retrospect, listening to ideas that he threw out, I was like, man, like in hindsight, there was like that's smart, that's clever. And then listening now to what matches he's producing backstage, like you can see that influence. And what that does too is that it teaches a talent perspective, an idea, a thought of how to go about something that they probably didn't even realize or think of. And that's the advantage of having producers that have done stuff and they've been around. They're creative. They see things from a different perspective. So you're able to offer the younger talent a different view of how to do something.
You mentioned how hard Matt Justice hit you earlier. What's the hardest you've been hit in the ring?
Oh, dude. Oh, man. Uh, I've been wrestling for 18 years now. The amount of times I've been hit. Uh, there's been a few, man. There's been a few. I remember Justin Gabriel got me once, like really hard, in England, and we were in London
He's
for.
been a common one that's come up like 2 or 3 times.
But also too, I want to say, because we're cool with each other, but I want to say it's because it was a dark venue, and then we were just moving like crazy. And it was just one of those that just popped me. I was like, oh man, but it woke me up. He got me once. I think Willie Mack got me once years ago. That kind of like made me go, oh, okay. I remember I took a back fist from this kid before I went to WWE that dislocated my jaw. I've been rocked so many times, but I'm pretty sure I've rocked people accidentally by as well too.
Of course, yeah.
Because it happens, right? But no, yeah, no, Justice is up there, but I loved it though. It makes you feel alive.
You were in a whole bunch of WWE video games. I'm always interested in the process of like, what do you do? Do you have any feedback that you give them? Like, what is the work, if any, that a performer like yourself goes into to be in one of those video games?
So when the very first video game that they did, if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember which one it was, but I want to say it was the first one. They took the truck to do mocap or to do the scanner thing to one of the events, one of the TVs. I believe they took it to one of the TVs. So we took turns going in there for the scanning.
Yeah.
And then shortly thereafter, they selected a few of us who needed to do voiceovers, and they took the truck again. And we were in the truck for a little while. So they gave you lines, and you have to say it a few times in different ways. So obviously excited, and then somber, and then just normal voice. But yeah, and then I remember I did that same once the performance center was open. I went to the performance center and then I did them there. But it's still a dream come true, like something that like you watched growing up and you played. I remember, man, SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain, No Mercy, WrestleMania 2000.
I'm a Here Comes the Pain guy, man. I love it. If you could run with the trigger buttons instead of triangle now, right? I would still play it. Yeah.
And then to be a part of it, and then they show you like the render of your persona in a video game. You know how awesome that is when you get your first action figure. How amazing, how surreal that is that people are going to be able to, that you're immortalized at that point. And regardless of whatever else happens in your life, nobody can ever take that away from you. Nobody can ever take that away from you, right? So, and that's the beautiful thing about all of this stuff. It's forever. Which is super cool, and I'm hoping that with MLW it gets to that point as well too, because they do have a action figure series. So definitely
a fantastic action figure line.
They have Microman.
Yes. Another thing nobody can take from you, it seems like, unless barring some miracle, you've had Bret Hart's last match. Yourself and Alberto against John Cena and Bret Hart.
I mention that a lot, and I feel like the more that I talk about it, the more they're gonna be like, you know what, let's take that away from them.
Do you remember when Mae Young came out there and everybody beat up somebody and she just put her foot on their chest and they counted it as a match? We'll do that with Bret.
Oh yeah, right. Don't give him ideas. It's one of those, man. I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for that. That to this day, that's still a thing, and and I hope it stays that way because it'll stay in the record books. But because I know for like the longest we were Edge's last match, Cope.
Yeah,
we were his last match, and obviously he came back, and I'm very happy with that. He came back, but we had that distinct honor for a little bit, for a couple of years. But yeah.
But I mean, you also had a lot of people's very early matches as well, like. Some of the first matches that Big E had, some of the first matches that Roman Reigns had.
Roman, back when he was Leia Key, he was married to me for a couple of months. And when he was first, starting to get his groove, there was a couple of us that were assigned to him. So him, Husky Harris, right?
Yeah, Bray. Yeah.
So Bray, I had Bray's early ones when he first. There was this other character he was doing before he became Bray. It was like Axel Mulligan,
Axel Mulligan. I remember
which
reading that. Yeah.
I was his first two match or two or so. Um, when Callisto came up to NXT, I was his first match. Um, yeah, there's a whole list of series, but and then this is one of those things where I didn't get at the time because again the ego how it works and you're like, man, why am I losing? Why am I this? Why aren't I the big star? Until later on you realize like, oh, I get it. They trusted me to be able to guide these talents. So in retro, it's one of those things that after the fact you realize why, and you appreciate it. And I get a chance to do that sometimes at MLW as well too where they're like, hey, we need somebody to put this guy over. Who can we trust to, make him look good? And that's where I come in. So, there's we used to call them like the workhorses or like the los caballitos de la guerra in Spanish. Um, where they're like, yeah, we can trust these guys to go and get something out of them. And I was very lucky that I was placed in that position quite a bit.
So even before your WWE days, you would run into people like Willie Mack, Peter Avalon that I know that you wrestled. When you're in the ring with those guys, are you like, yeah, this is a person I'm going to be running into down the road? Because like a guy like Willie Mack still around, still doing it at a high level. Hard to like. It's one of those things. Like some of it's learned, obviously, but like some people just got it.
Yeah, no, there's people, and again, early on, we don't know any better. I was on the
Sure.
independents for about 4 years before I got signed to WWE, so I was still relatively new. And then even in California, where I'm from, I didn't hang out with like the cool kids, right? I kind of went off and did my own thing because I was more so lucha based originally. So I started doing a lot of like Tijuana and Mexico and the border cities, in LA, San Diego. So I wasn't with the cool kids, but I would wrestle a lot of them every now and then, and then yeah, you can tell like these guys have something to them, but because you don't exactly know uh, anything from anything, and then I think that's also an important thing is knowing that hey, I don't know anything yet, and that's important to know that I don't know anything. Uh,
Yes.
so you're open, you become a sponge, and you learn as you go along. But yeah, no, you have guys like there was this guy that I really wish, and I know injuries happen. There's a guy named Infernal who was so good and so-called crazy. There's so many in LA. Ricky Mandel was another one that's so good and talented. Hector Canales, um, that I wish would have boomed a lot more. But yeah, you have your guys. There was like Johnny Goodtime, who I think still does things from time to time, and Willie Mack, and obviously because even though they were like maybe a year or two before I started clicking in, the Young Bucks, Scorpio Sky, that PWG crew, who was basically the main top dogs in the area. Your TJ Perkins, oh man, the list goes on and on of those guys that you're like, there's something there. And as you advance and you be like, hey, maybe these guys have something that you're gonna be running into them later on. Um, and that's something I'm always proud of. That a bunch of us came from LA and we made it, even though our paths took us completely different ways. Eventually, down the road, we met up somewhere, and we found success in a different way. Myself, I was lucky again. WWE. When I left WWE, finding success. Doing what I did in India, Australia, and Egypt, and then now here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and then working with MLW. So obviously the Young Bucks with the AEW, Scorpio Sky, those guys. So it's a proud moment to see everybody that I came up along with. And again, even though we went different paths, we all found success.
I'm so glad that you mentioned so many of those names because there was something I wanted to ask you. You'd mentioned Johnny Goodtime, SoCal Crazy, yourself, Willie Mack, Scorpio Sky. You are all a part of a 159-man battle royal, of which
Oh
Scorpio
man,
Sky won. And I love it because like almost every one of those names you mentioned were in
they're
this
they're
match.
in it. That was for this company called AWS. That was that. Yeah, they had like I think like two or three, like three rings, and we're
Yeah.
all in there. So it wasn't I don't remember if it was where like one at a time or all of us were in at the same time. I think it was all of us at the same time. I
I
think.
think it was at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the rings broke because obviously the weight. Um,
Oh,
yeah, that was just one of those, and I think it's still in the record. I think I'm not sure.
it's gotta be.
I
Gotta
think it's.
be.
I know there's one that has a record for like the longest match, and it was like 24 hours. Um, but I think that was in there for like the longest. But yeah, there was this running joke for the longest, and then guys from Southern California will get it. There was this running joke that if there was ever a battle royale, there was this guy named Sexy Chino who would always win it. So if anybody out there goes and then just Google searches Sexy Chino wrestler, oh yeah, you'll get an idea why.
So, I mean, in a match like that, where do you even begin? Like, what they can't produce something like
No,
that. They
no.
clearly have a person who's going to win it.
Yeah,
But like, how do you even begin to decide such a thing?
I think a lot of that was just to be a part of it, just kind of go, do a minute or two, and then just get out. Because obviously you realize, hey, there's a lot of people here. Um,
Yes.
so there's a lot of people here. So let me get out of this before somebody gets hurt. So yeah, I don't think I was in there for too long. I think I hit like 2, 3 people, and I got out, I believe. But it was just to be a part of it.
Of course. It's one of those things. Like, if you're offered that situation, you're not going to pass it up.
Right.
Because here we are, gosh, what, 15 years later, and I'm asking you about it. So go figure.
Oh man.
Guys, MLW Kings of Colosseum this weekend in Dallas. Make sure you guys check it out. Before we hop off here, let people know where they can follow you, support you, and check out what you're doing.
Well, most importantly, obviously MLW, right? This Saturday, so definitely excited for that in Texas. So it'll be the first time for me going back in years to Texas. I'm excited about that. We have a lot of huge matchups. Like, to me, one of my favorite ones I'm looking forward to is Janai Kai versus Delmi Exo for the hair versus title match. That's been months in the making, almost a year in the making. For me, another personal favorite will be Atlantis and Atlantis Jr. versus Blue Panther and Dark Panther. So that should be a lot of lucha libre fun. There's gonna be a gravity gamble match. It's a ladder match between Akira BRG, Matthew Justice, Kevin Knight, a couple other individuals. The CMLL guys like Místico will be their Máscara Dorada, will be their Máscara Dorado. Excuse me. So that's definitely worth checking out this Saturday. And then as for me, if you guys ever have an idea that I have my own company in Lancaster, Pennsylvania named 3 Legacies Wrestling, check it out. We've been booming the last 2.5 years that we've been in operation, and check out our YouTube, 3 Legacies Wrestling.
We will link to that in the description. A reminder, guys, MLW Kings of Colosseum this weekend in Dallas. Jesus Rodriguez, we thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, my friends, we're out.